It's really hard to take responsibility even for the things in my life that are negative. And that's the thing. So if you want to be a real grown up, a real aware, evolve, everybody wants to be involved and aware. We talk about aware CEOs and all that other stuff right now. It's about understanding that whatever's happening, whether it's something you want or something you don't want, you are directly responsible for the co-creation of what's going on. It's just like here in America, we got some interesting political conversations going on here with our, who's at the top of it. And it's just like, we all co-created this. I co-created this as much as every other American co-created this.
How do you get 10,000 people to take a step to the left? What's behind the relentless mindset of a world champion? Why do teams of exceptional talent fail? How do you manage the pressure to perform? These are just some of the curious questions we will attempt to answer as we bring you world leaders, curious minds, exceptional talent, successful CEOs, and incredible human beings who know how to inspire great leaders and are inspiring great leaders themselves. I am Craig Johns, high performance leadership expert, international speaker, and CEO of Speakers Institute Corporate and World Sport Coach. This is the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong. Welcome to the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast. Our guest today is an intuitive guide and relationship coach, strategic leadership consultant, the host of the Wellness Revolution podcast, and the author of Get the Respect You Deserve. She has an AB honors in psychology, majoring in neuroscience from Princeton University, an MD honors in medicine from Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, that's a mouthful there, and is trained in functional medicine by the Institute of Functional Medicine and Homeopathy. Her career includes being the owner and chief doctor of ophthalmology at Eye Associates of Central New Jersey, transformative coach and chief medical officer at Medicine World Enterprises, and the CEO of Rosewater Falls Incorporated. I have the privilege to introduce you to a fascinating human who focuses on helping reveal your authentic self, deliver transformational clarity, and empower higher achieving women to thrive both personally and professionally. Not only that, she has a third dan black belt in Taekwondo. Dr. Veronica Anderson. Dr. Veronica, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Craig.
Now you're living there near Philadelphia in the USA, and I'm really curious, where did you grow up and what was the big dream as a child?
Interesting, because I'm close to home. I was actually born in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, and most people know Philadelphia as the place where the United States started. And I haven't strayed far away from the area, except I do love to travel. So I've been different places in the world, but I haven't been to Australia, and I've been thinking about that. Okay. But I'm right outside of Philadelphia. I've lived part-time in New York City. My husband is originally from West Africa via France. So we now have a place in Nice, France, in the south of France. And I've learned to speak French as an adult, which brought me to tears. I'll let you know. But outside of Philadelphia, close to home is where I am today.
And what was that big dream? What were you looking for? What did you want to be in life?
It's interesting because you think about big dreams and you only go so far, and then you get to the dream and you're just like, this is what I thought it was going to be and not really what I want in life. And that's what happened to me. So when I was young, I dreamed of being a doctor. And then I became a doctor, and I was an eye surgeon. I wasn't just I'm not saying just, because all doctors have a lot of education and training and it takes years and years. But I was an eye surgeon. I was an ophthalmologist and a specialist in glaucoma. And I always wanted to be a doctor when I was young. And then I became a doctor, went into practice, had my own practice. Other doctors working for me had started from patient zero, and realized at that point that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was a point of misery, because you work hard for something and then you're just like, this is not what I want to do. Now, how do I even say that or tell anybody? What else is there? How do I even admit that? And this is why I'm here now, because I crashed and burned and got the courage to actually do something else.
Yeah, it's a great area to start in with. A lot of people, they'll put so much time and effort into something, and they feel like hamstrung a little bit or handcuffed in a way by, I've put all this time and effort in. I'm a doctor or whatever it may be, whatever the profession may be, and find it really difficult, no matter how they're feeling about it, to ever be able to step out of it. And so to get to that space, I think one is identifying that you don't really like it, or it's not what you thought it would be, but then two, that they're having that courage to step away. So what was it about it that you found didn't really connect with you?
So it's interesting, because you're in this profession which is very highly respected, and um, we've been through a major health crisis all over the world, and I don't know that doctors still have the same level of respect. But um, I just realized that I loved my patients and I hated the business of medicine. But also, I always felt like I'm supposed to be doing something else. I had this nagging feeling that this is not really what I'm supposed to be doing. And to the point where I ended up suffering from burnout and a real major clinical depression. It was that I had what people would consider a perfect life. I had a beautiful practice. I was married. I had 3 children. We had all the accoutrements that people would say that you're supposed to have in life, that are supposed to make you happy. And I felt utterly miserable.
Mm.
So it ended up being a point where I just ran away. One day I decided I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. I told, and now think about this. I'm the practice owner, the owner of the practice, and I was like planning of I'm escaping this, not telling you much. I just told my office I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'll have somebody else working for me. But as I was planning that, I was like, I'm never coming back to this. Okay. Because I am miserable. But I hadn't said that out loud to anybody. But in my head, I knew this is it.
It's a fascinating position to be in. I mean, obviously you've taken you're on a sabbatical. You're not coming back. So were you able to sell the business? Or did you just close it down? How did you transition through that space, with others? Obviously in your head, you're dealing it on one side, you've got this transition going on. On the other side, you've got a completely different transition with other people sort of happening.
Yeah, I went through a severe clinical depression at that point. I was already depressed before I did this. And, my marriage fell apart. Practice, I went to the point where I just one day announced to my office staff, and I had other doctors working for me at this time, and I just said, I'm going to close my practice. And I thought about, okay, maybe I can sell it, but I didn't have the, let me call it, wherewithal or stick to it enough to wait to put it on the market for a buyer. So I just decided I'm going to sell all my equipment. I'm closing the doors, and that's it. And that's what I did. Um, Now, having some money stashed away and things like that, I always was like, well, I'm going to get it together, and one day I'll come back to this if I have to come back to this. But it was just all of I got to get out of here. It wasn't strategic thinking. It wasn't the way anybody would tell you to do it, except that I knew in order to save my life that I needed to just get out and stop. And at the time I'm going through this, and some people can relate with what I'm telling, I just felt like I don't care what happens, but I gotta be and do something else. I don't even know what that is. But if I stay where I am right now, I'm gonna die. That's how I felt. I felt like I was going to die. And what do I do? So it was just, I had burnout. I had compassion fatigue. Had a major clinical depression. And most people around me did not notice. They noticed something was going on, but they weren't quite sure what it was that was going on, until I stepped away. And then people were like, something's going on. Except we're back at a time where nobody was talking about mental health. Um, I didn't know who to turn to, nothing. It just, right now in today's world, I am glad that mental health is on the horizon. And the only time there was any, let me say, respite or kind of a glimmer of feeling like I'm not alone is I actually talked to the woman who was my mentor, who had delivered my sons. And she said, "Oh yeah, a lot of doctors do go through this. This is not. I had a period like this. If it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't have gotten through this. He was so good." All right. Well, the thing that was happened to me is, my husband just wasn't understanding about what was going on, and our marriage was breaking apart. So I didn't have the support of a marriage, and I don't blame him. I think it's something where you're not taught how to deal with these things. You're not taught as a partner or anything. I didn't know what was going on. So how could he come to my rescue and know what was going on? He just saw me doing things that made no sense to him, that were pissing him off. And it was just like, all right, you just, whatever. You want out of the marriage? Bye. Bye-bye. And things just literally fell apart so quickly. It was just like, okay, now what am I going to do? But here's the thing. If I hadn't gone through this, people talk about having these illnesses, and I work with people like this. They have an illness, or somebody passes away, or a divorce, or some big event in their life where it's just like, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have the blessings that I do now. We were having a talk before, and he's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm preparing a presentation to work with a company this week where I'm doing my purpose in life." And back when I was a doctor and I thought that was my purpose, but had a feeling that it wasn't, I wasn't happy. And today it's like, it's the weekend still for me. And I'm feeling joy and wonderfulness in being able to use my gifts and talents, which does also include doctor background a lot, to help other companies, leaders, people get what they want in their careers and their personal life. And it only came out of having that seriously painful experience. And I tell the story because there's somebody out there in the audience who's saying, she gives me the courage to jump out, because I know I got to jump out. I got to do something else. And this is the message of hope for people, that when you think it's over, it's not over. There are other careers for you, spouses for you. I'm remarried, life for you. It's just, I said I learned how to speak French. I learned how to speak, only reason I learned how to speak French is because I met a man whose native language is French, and we were traveling to France. Would have never done that before. It made my life so rich. And when I was in the depths of depression, I could not see that. So I do these podcasts to tell people, because I work with a lot of leaders who are, think about it. I'm sitting on top of an organization with multiple people working under me, which means I'm responsible for their lives. That means their family, their children, and you're feeling that pressure. Oh my God, if I don't perform, if I do this, everything else is going to fall apart. But then there becomes a day where you're like, I got to save me. I have to save me. And everybody else is going to figure it out. And that's what happened. Everybody else figured it out.
Quite often when we're very much service-minded, service-driven in our lives, people that, whether you're working in the medical profession, whether you're working in not-for-profits, whether you're working in health and fitness, or you're a CEO, or you're in leadership position, we quite often, as you say, we're thinking about other people. We serve them first. But we have to be selfish at times and actually serve ourselves to be able to then be able to serve others much more effectively than what we can if we aren't taking care of ourselves. And so I love the fact that it took quite a crisis moment in a way for you to be able to do that. And hopefully we can share with others that, you don't need to go through crisis to learn this, and be able to make sure that you're in the right space, you're able to serve people in the right way because you've looked after yourself first. And that's so
Yes,
important.
and the thing that happens, because one thing in the medical profession, people don't necessarily know this, but the medical profession has a very high suicide rate.
Mm.
And I didn't know that when I was going through the depression, but later on, I found that out, that this kind of thing was common, and I've also seen a significant number of my colleagues actually kill themselves because they feel like there's no choice and they can't stop helping other people. They feel shame and guilt for taking care of themselves because that's how we're taught. We're taught to, and this is not just doctors, it's a lot of people in general, and especially women. A lot of times women are taught everybody else before yourself. And there's many things that you do that are of detriment to yourself that when you decide to be quote unquote selfish, when you stop sacrificing yourself, you start realizing that, oh my gosh, I'm better than I was when I was sacrificing myself. Now that I tend to my wants, needs, and desires first, I'm better at doing everything, which is a surprise because that's not how we're taught.
Yeah. Simon Sinek has a book called Leaders Eat Last. And to me, it should be Leaders Eat First and Last. And when you think about eating first, it's not so much eating food, right? It's about looking after yourself first before you then serve people. And, like if you when you're in the situations working with people, then you need to make sure you're not at the front, at the front of the line all the time. But you need to have eaten beforehand, if that analogy makes sense, because we've got to look after ourselves first. But it's interesting, why do you think it is in that medical profession that they tend to find themselves in situations where depression, maybe suicidal thoughts or suicide occurs so much in the industry?
Ooh, well, first, you are almost taught like you're God, and you realize that you're not. And so failure's not allowed in any way. And so when anything comes out wrong, you take it personally. And that's the problem. You're taking everything personally. So when there's a bad outcome with a patient, you feel like that's my fault. I did that. Now, in reality, that's not how life works, but we're not taught that. We are taught in what's called it's called the Cartman triangle, where there's a victim, a rescuer, and a persecutor. That's what we're all taught. So when something goes wrong, we're used to being the rescuer, but we've becoming the persecutor when something happens wrong because somebody else becomes the victim. That's the triangle that most of us operate in and the mindset is in. And you feel like when you're on that side where you're not the rescuer, you're now the persecutor, you become the victim, it's just untenable. You don't realize also that everything's co-created. It's a different way of thinking than how most of humanity works. It's a level of awareness that a lot of times people are saying, well, what else is there? There's not the victim, the rescue, and the persecutor, the Cartman trial. There's the empowerment where everybody is a creator. Everything that's happening, you are co-creating, whether it's something that you like or something you don't like, it's co-created. So when something is happening to somebody else that is what you might call bad or negative, you and the other person, you and the humanity, you're co-creating that particular situation. Now, what is great about this is on the other side, you can co-create something positive, but you have to be mature enough to want to truly be empowered. And that means taking the radical responsibility of being a creator instead of being a victim. And so people are like, well, how do I do this? And this is something that I'd say most of humanity is just not aware that there's any other model than being a victim, a rescuer, or a persecutor. If you look at what's going on in the world right now, across all geopolitically and everything, everybody's fighting to be the victim. People are fighting because I'm more of a victim than you are. Groups of people, this is what's happening. We're deciding that group, that institution, they're the persecutor, they're the bad guys. Those people are the victim. Let me go rescue them. This is how the whole world is kind of working. And in order to do things differently, you have to understand that there is a different way of doing it, and you have to start doing that in life, in your business, in everything. And so when I'm working with people, part of it is raising the awareness that, hey, I know you've been doing things over here. Here's another option. And once you're aware that there's another option, you're like, I really do like that better because it really does give me power. But on the other side, it's really hard to take responsibility even for the things in my life that are negative. And that's the thing. So if you want to be a real grown up, a real aware, evolve, everybody wants to be involved and aware. We talk about aware CEOs and all that other stuff right now. It's about understanding that whatever's happening, whether it's something you want or something you don't want, you are directly responsible for the co-creation of what's going on. It's just like here in America, we got some interesting political conversations going on here with our, who's at the top of it. And it's just like, we all co-created this. I co-created this as much as every other American co-created this. And so it's a great responsibility to have, but how do you change it? The more and more people that become aware, the more it's going to get change.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I'm going to use a little bit of analogy here when we look at the victim, the persecutor, the rescuer. If you look at many wars, right, each wars are quite different. If we look at what's happening in Israel right now, for instance, the way the rest of the world are approaching rescuing might be just aid packages. Whereas other wars, they might come in and actually then, come in and fight the war, so to speak, too. So it's really interesting to see when the way people approach the rescuing part. And sometimes they actually tend to fall into, now they become a persecutor or even a victim by the approach they take versus actually what is rescuing. If there's a situation, to me, when there's rescuing, your job is to actually get people to look through a different lens and see it from a different perspective and realize that their one tunnel vision view may not be the best way, may not be the most appropriate way in this co-creation or whatever, this environment that's occurring or what's happening right now. And so as humans, we're fascinating in that way. But I think that ability, if we can teach more people that ability to be able to step outside their own shoes and be able to see through different lenses, we might have a little bit more of a closer, harmonious world than we currently do.
Yes. And one of the pieces to realize is everybody's on high alert right now. Mental health is just horrible because everybody's worried about everything. You cannot live in a state of high alert all the time. This is when your whole burnout comes. It's a physical thing because the stress system is on overdrive. You can't do it anymore. And this is why people are falling apart. It's mind, body, spirit happening. What you have to learn how to do is realize that I'm not the rescue of the world. And I have to back off and figure out what is going to be good for me and what is my particular life like. So when looking at all this going on around the world, I think that's a shame that's happening. I think that's a shame that's happening. I think that's, but you, unless you are directly involved in some way, you have to figure out how to pull yourself out of the emotions of it and take care of yourself. And what is that? And so when you mentioned particular war, no one likes to see that, but I'm not, I'm seeing things happen that I don't like on all sides.
Yeah.
I'm not taking a side, which some might throw horrible things at me because I'm like, this is not my battle to fight.
Right.
I'm here in XYZ place. My best and highest use is being on podcast, helping people who are living in the world doing things and helping my family that's my best and highest use. The war over there, the only way I will be involved is if I watch it and I'm emotionally in it. Okay. And I'm not. And me being emotionally in it is not going to help change the situation. It's not part of my life purpose and destiny at this moment in time. Therefore, I have to pull myself out of all that type of stuff. And this is one of the issues with these 24-hour news cycles, because we see things that grab our emotions and then renders us ineffectual in other parts of our life because we're having an emotional response. An emotional response, many times we're having about something that really doesn't affect our lives at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here I am in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and really what's going on there, right here and right now, is not affecting my life at all. Now, could something happen in the future? Yes. And when that happens, we're all going to be, I'll say we'll all be screwed if something big happens and starts over here. And then I'll do what's appropriate at that time. But worrying about all these other things, this is what is keeping people really emotionally on high alert and actually works to divert our attention from what really matters. Okay. So you have to now here's the thing. When you're worried about other things happening in the world, you're casting yourself in a victim role. You're doing that. So you have to realize that, well, what is there? Okay. I said creator. Everybody is a creator. And so what you're saying, people rescue and then they end up doing something that doesn't work the way they want to. If I'm a creator, part of me being the creator is how do I help other people create and create in a positive direction that's going to help the world? How do I help them create? And so I'm not going to be involved in certain kinds of conflicts, which is not, because that's not creating in the direction that I want to create in my life or in the world. So because I don't have solutions for that, and it's not my life purpose, I step out of that. And that's for a lot of people, they're like, but, because they're not taught that they can do that. They're taught, we're taught we're supposed to care, and it's bad if you don't care or do something in a certain way, right? We're taught by our culture and society what we should think about, what we should care about. This is part of when I work with people, I use what's called the respect method. After you reflect, look at what's going on and take responsibility for it, then you go to the first E, which is evaluate your beliefs. And you have to figure out, is my belief, first of all, is it serving me or is it not serving me? And if I have a belief that's making me feel bad, what's my gain out of feeling bad? And my gain out of feeling bad might be, well, everybody else in my family feels bad and I'm connecting with them when I feel bad. That's how we're all kind of connected together. And so by us connecting together like that, I'm part of the tribe and I'm not left alone, right? There's these base things that we do to belong, a lot of us, that really don't serve us. And we feel like if we don't do those things, we're going to be rejected and then we're going to be abandonment. And I mean, just a core belief of a lot of us is we're going to be kicked out of the tribe. We're going to be abandoned. Our needs aren't going to be able to take care of. We're not going to have relationships. And so we do a lot because of that fear, and we want to stay close and in the tribe. You have to be willing to step out of that, to say, no, I'm not going to say this is right because I'm not going to do that anymore. And you may choose not to say anything at all, but just pull yourself away, because taking care of you means, what are you going to do to feel good? When you feel good, when you're calm, when you're lowering your hormones and your cortisol, then all of a sudden you're starting to think and feel differently, and you can create different results in your life. So think about that. I'm talking about, how do you create? Well, you're not going to create when you're involved emotionally in something that you can do nothing about. You will create when you tend to you. Okay.
Good. I really like that. You got to attend to you. I think it's really important if you're going to be able to create effectively versus trying to put yourself into situations or allowing yourself to go into situations that aren't really serving or either you or other people, because you don't really have much control in those situations or have any level of control in those situations. You spoke about the respect aspect here, and you talked about reflecting as the R, and evaluating, I think was the E. Do you want to unpack the respect method for us?
Okay, so E is evaluating your beliefs, and that's just really looking at everything you think about, what you think about. Where did you get the belief? Is it serving you? And then that's a yes or no. And this takes a while to do. This is, part of the coaching is like I'm saying, I'm asking right now, we were talking about a tough issue. We were talking about a war. And I'm like, well, what do I believe about this? Well, I might take a side, but on the other side, I believe this is not really affecting my life, so I got to step back. And is that true or not true? It's true. It's not affecting my life. And so, you know what I'm saying? You have to think about, well, what do I believe and why I believe? And a lot of people will believe this is affecting their life because they belong to a certain group or whatever. And it's really not affecting their life, right? So E is evaluating your belief on just a very deep and honest level. S is for surrender to your spirit. And this is the step that I absolutely love and people love too, because this is after you do a little bit of reflecting and asking yourself, then you have to figure out, well, who exactly am I? If I'm not those group of beliefs, or if I want to change them, then who am I and how do I make decisions? And this is where tools like the Colby Index come in, where we're looking at, here's how you do things. This is part of your brain. This is how you do naturally and you're wired. This is a piece of you. You understand your brain's wired like this. Other people are different. So here's how you're going to take action naturally. And you've been since you were born. And then the other piece of that is your energy. And what that energy has to do with what I call your spiritual DNA. And this is the step that I use also human design in, because it's a way of languaging your purpose, your destiny, and who you are as an energetic spiritual being. Now, human design, we could do a whole 5-10 hours on that, but I'm going to leave it there. We're talking about your instincts. We're talking about your energy or your intuition. There's also your imprinting. Like we talked about that a little bit when we were talking about how you're taught to think a particular way based on your culture, society, and where you're born. Well, from 0 to like 7, 8, you're just a subconscious mind where everything's being sunk into you and you're not thinking about it. You're just taking it. And even as an adult, those things that other people have taught you, you're still operating by. That's why you got to evaluate beliefs. So surrender to your spirit is about learning who you really are as an authentic being, and then making some decisions from there. So then comes the P, and that's for pause. Okay. And the P is about stop doing things that aren't working. So that's really when I believe this, I'm doing this. What am I going to stop doing? Because that's not really how I want to believe. You got to start doing something differently. But the pause is also about physically taking a break from life, taking a break from work, taking time to yourself in a particular amount of time, away from the spouse, away from the kids, away from the dog, away from everything else, so that you can really be in a space and figure out, well, who am I and what do I really think? Away from the TV, the news, and the internet and social media. Okay. Away from what everybody else thinks and giving yourself a chance to figure out, what do I want to be? Who am I? And what am I going to be right about? Okay, so P, pause. RESPE is for elevate your energy. Elevating your energy has to do with letting go of those low-lying emotions that are actually ones that cause illness. Fear, anger, sadness, shame, guilt, all those, like if we're talking about, you're taught you're supposed to sympathize a certain way, and if you don't feel that way, you're a bad person. That's guilt. Somebody guilts you into feeling a certain way. You have to let go of that, because these low-lying emotions, which are low vibrations, are what cause the manifestation of illnesses and injuries. Physical illnesses and injuries are caused by what's in your spirit, what's in your aura, and it's very predictable. And this is something that most people don't know and or don't verbalize, especially in Western culture. But when I work with someone who's had a health crisis, and I'll say, all right, I know it's linked to something emotionally and spiritual. Do you know what that is? Everybody says yes. Everybody tells you what else is going on in their life besides, oh, I didn't eat the right food, I didn't smoke. They tell you something else going on in their emotional life or their spiritual life, or something that they're battling with that's related to their physical issue that's going on at the time. And what they also realize, that people who come with these heavy health problems, is, I know that it is imperative that I work out that thing that's outside of my body in order for me to really heal inside of my body. You are a whole person. Your mind, body, spirit. Most people are saying, yeah, I understand that, but what does that really mean? In Western culture and Western medicine, we've divorced the physical from everything else. We don't even talk about it a lot of times. But then when you have that conversation with somebody who's had cancer, and I'll say, so when did you decide you wanted to die? They all will answer the question of when they decided they wanted to die, long before they got to cancer. Okay. And cancer is a noble way to die, right? Over suicide or anything like that. So I'm just saying, there are these spiritual and mental issues that are going on that end up manifesting as a physical illness or injury. Somebody could have multiple accidents or multiple injuries or things like that. Or I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, yet my blood pressure, I'm on every medicine, I'm eating, I'm exercising, I lost weight, and my blood pressure is still through the roof. Why is that happening to me? You have to work out those things that are going on in your aura energy. So elevate your energy means, how do I let go of those fear, anger, sadness, and all those other emotions, and bring them over to the health promoting emotions of gratitude, love, and joy, and up and up and up, so that I can be as well as I possibly can be. C, commit to your values and boundaries. What are your values? What are your values? Not your values as a woman, not your values as an Australian or American, not your values as a man, not your values as whatever ethnicity or religion that you belong to. What really are your values? And when I work with people, I'll give a list of a bunch of, like, hundreds of them that you could pick from, because it's hard to do this. What does this really mean to you? And then, how are you going to play that out in your life? And what are your boundaries based on that value system? What are your boundaries? Because a lot of times we have loose boundaries, and people are like, well, what is it? Okay, well, what does the boundary look like? How do we keep that? Okay. Now, after you've gotten there, the other thing that people really need to wonder about is, am I trusting myself? And most people, They don't trust themselves. Why? They've never been taught to trust themselves. They've been taught to trust their parents. They've been taught to trust a higher being. They've been taught to trust a religious institution, a educational institution, a government. You can name all types of things that people have been taught to trust, none of them being themselves. So when it comes to making decisions in life, most people are petrified to make a decision. And so therefore, they're really in a pickle because you do need to make decisions without evidence a lot of the times in your life. You just have to keep on the path. So how do you do that? This is when I really teach people, you've learned about your spiritual DNA and your design and surrender to your spirit. Then I say, okay, here's how you're going to use your particular design to trust your gut and trust your intuition. Here's the strategy just for you. Now, go out and do this and then come back, report so we can refine it. And then you really know what trusting yourself feels like. So why it's the respect method, because the bottom line is you are not getting respect from anybody else unless you respect yourself. And that means you need to learn how to deeply trust yourself. And so we go through all these steps that it can be done with an individual or teams of people to be able to learn, how do I respect myself? How do I tell people, make people respect you. How you make people respect you is you respect yourself. That's exactly why the leader needs to eat first, okay? When the leader sits down and eats, everybody respects the leader, don't they? Think about it. The king eats first, then everybody else. You see the king eating last? No. Okay. So you need to realize that you're the king or queen of your world. It's your own special world and you are the center. And so you're the creator of it. And that means that you also must respect yourself. Nothing outside of yourself, no one outside of yourself, no entity outside yourself. You respect yourself first, and everything else will come out of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, we've unpacked a lot there. A couple of things that are coming to mind. You talked about imprinting earlier. What is being imprinted on you, on your life, etc. Why? And obviously, if we respect ourselves, then what has been imprinted on our life will then reflect out to other people if we are, respecting ourselves, trusting ourselves. When we think about imprinting, do you want to unpack this a little bit more? And obviously we're going to go through different environments, different experiences, different things along the way, which could be imprinted on us. But I'm really interested to see how we can leverage this for people to be attracted to us.
Interesting. Okay, so one thing that you said, things are going to be imprinted on us along the way. So the strongest imprinting is between the ages of 0 and 7, when you're only a subconscious mind. You are not thinking, you're not really caught everything that's coming in without any filters or anything like that. That is the strongest time. It's the critical period. This is something that is known very well scientifically for those who want to deep dive into this, critical period of imprinting. This is when your brain is growing in a particular way and your mind's being formed in a particular way. However, after that, everything that you're exposed to is having some type of impact on you and experiences on you. And this is one of the reasons that you have to guard what is going into you. This is one of the reasons that you need to guard what you're watching on TV or what you're listening to, okay? Because you will realize that people follow a certain way and believe certain things based on what they're taking in from the outside. And many times, a lot of that is unfiltered. And you don't know what's true and what's not true. You have to be able to decide for yourself, because there's some things you don't even want to have exposure to because they're going to be there. The idea is going to be there imprinted. I mean, you got this mind that just everything's taken in. You can't unsee something. You can't unhear something. So one of the pieces is to realize that just acknowledge that is what's happening. And so, in order for me to have a measure of control, I'm going to have to put myself in environments where it's going the way that's going to be uplifting to my life. Now, that's a challenge. That is a big challenge because you will realize that there are people around you, sometimes family, that you're like, well, what do I do about that? Sometimes you have to make the decision to withdraw in certain ways. So you're not around certain things. It's like, when you decide that you're going to be successful and you're from a poor background, you're going to move out of it because those people, that's not where they are. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't care about them. But if you ever want a chance of helping those people, you need to put yourself in another background where there's a different story going on and you're being imprinted with other pieces of information to help you go in the right direction. And this is a lot of times hard for people, especially with, family and old friends. And you feel like you're betraying when you're leaving a lot of this. People have trouble with this and this keeps them stuck because they feel this sense of betrayal. So imprinting is one of those things. It does happen throughout your life. The strongest imprinting is happening from 0 to 7. You're not going to be able to stop it. So you need to create environments where you're controlling it to the best of your ability. And that's why you have to watch what you're watching on TV, what you're listening to on the radio, what you're scrolling on social media, because you're just getting all types of uncontrolled, unfiltered things. And so, you hear people say, I don't watch TV, I don't listen to radio, or, what are you doing? If you want to, you have people like, I think you were mentioning Simon Sinek, right? People like that who are mindset type people. A lot of times what kind of routine do they have? They're probably, my routine is doing this in the morning. Like my routine is I'm getting up, I'm meditating, I'm doing a daily study of my spiritual stuff. I'm intending my day. I'm writing, here's what I intend to happen to today. Here's what happened yesterday that I have to let go of so I can intend for something different in the day. I mean, if you see people who are successful, they generally have certain practices. It doesn't include being glued to social media, okay? And that's one thing you have to realize, that what are the habits that are going to lead you the way you want to. So here's the piece that's important. You have to realize that you listen to this podcast, and right now you're going to be in the state of knowing. You know something. But that doesn't mean you know how to do it or actually embody it or be it. And so you realize there's all these different parts of your brain and your injury. And right now, when you're listening to this podcast, we've only hit a few things, but we're hitting more your knowing. So now you're knowing and you're aware. And now you can't be unaware. You listen to this, and your level of vibration, of energy has gone up just by listening to this podcast. And me telling you about, there's level of awareness, there's levels of energy. You can drop those. Your level of awareness has risen. This is how it works. So it's important for you to go forward realizing that you've listened to this podcast, but what else can you do to move forward? You're going to need some help. You're going to need help from people like Dr. Veronica, people like Craig, who are here. This is what we do. We help people, because how do we learn how to do things? From other people. We don't learn how to do things from reading it. We don't learn how to do things from watching it. I didn't learn how to I was an eye surgeon. You think I learned how to be an eye surgeon from reading a book and watching videos? Oh, no. Okay. Somebody taught me, and somebody stood over me to make sure that if I was looking the area, they were, no, let me correct you, until I was the master eye surgeon. And then it's see one, do one. And then to really know that you have mastery, you have to teach it. Because when I can get you to do it and not just know it, but do it and be it, that means that I truly have mastery over whatever subject that this is, right? So for those who are listening, that's the steps you have to take. Okay, now you know it. Now you have to do it, but somebody's going to have to teach you how to do it. You're not going to know how to do it from watching this. Yes, I want you to read my book, but the reading the book is for you to decide whether or not you like me enough to hire me. And if you don't like me enough to hire me, hire Craig or hire another coach, because that's how you're going to learn from somebody else. And that's how you're going to become, by changing your belief system, trusting yourself, all these steps that I talked about in the respect method. You're going to be able to go through it, but you're not going to go through this from, we think that we can read books and watch videos on YouTube and take trainings. I mean, employers make the big mistake of thinking, oh, we'll bring somebody in for like a half day or even a day. Maybe we'll do even a 3-day retreat. Now they all have it. Now we have to go through the experience over time, constant space repetition, come back, correct, go out and do it some more, teach each other. That's how you're really going to get change within your organization and in yourself. None of this 3-day trainings and we're check the box. Okay. This is something I didn't learn how to do. I didn't do a 3-day training to do a surgeon. You didn't do a 3-day training when you were a coach or a swimmer or the other athletes. You do it. There was mastery. And how much did you teach other people? Even when you weren't formally the teacher, you were probably teaching other people.
Oh, I like this. All right. So imprinting, and then we could keep unpacking that a lot, because obviously parents have a huge impact on what's imprinted on someone's mind, the teachers, other people around them. And it's a big role as a parent to really even consider, what do I put in front of these people? Because they still need to be exposed to other things to kind of understand that there might be, this is maybe better for you. This may not be better for you, to be able to see that. But it's around, how do we make sure that they get those positive imprints so that they can not only have a good direction in life, but also to, when they come across other situations, they can also handle those situations too, or the different things they see. Spoke a lot around trusting yourself. And I think a lot of the times people try and put they put the responsibility on other people, or put the responsibility on not even just other people, but on organizations or words or whatever it may be. That ability to trust your gut, so to speak, or trust your instinct and intuition, I think is so valuable. I watch a lot of people, even think about sport. I watch so many people in sport who are thinking about the process, who are thinking about what someone else has said, rather than just being in that moment and allowing them to trust themselves to make the right decisions, or make the right move without hesitating or be overconsumed by a wealth of information or something that someone else has said to them. How can we be more effective as humans in trusting ourselves to be able to handle a situation, make a decision quickly or patiently, whatever that may need in that time? How can we be better at doing this?
So the first is courage. You got to have the courage that you want to go in this particular direction. It's a awesome responsibility, and there's going to come some people who think, I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to do that. It's too big. Why do people feel that way? Because we don't want to be wrong. A lot of times, in most situations, how society is set up is you are rewarded for being right and penalized for being wrong. And so you go through life with that need to be right or not be wrong. And that's like one of those things that you're going to have to give up to be able to learn how to trust yourself, because it's practice. And so what happens is there's not a right or a wrong answer. You have to understand, when you're making a decision, it's not a right or wrong answer. It's information for your next step. So if you make an investment and the money gets lost, it means that's information for the next step, not that a tragedy happened. Okay. You're going to make mistakes. Nothing is a straight line. So you learn to trust yourself by just doing it. So the first thing is to have courage, and then you have to just do it. Like Nike says, well, how the process of trusting yourself and just doing it, there's a strategy for being able to do that. That's why I use this human design system, so I can look at somebody's design and say, okay, you're a projector, you're a manifestor. This is how you ask yourself questions to be able to trust yourself in the moment. And that's different for different people. So we sit down, after you learn that piece about yourself, I'm like, this is the strategy to use. Why? You keep using that strategy, because as you keep using that strategy, you're going to understand what your own intuition feels like. And as you understand it more and more and more, feel it more and more and more, that's how the trust is going to do. Just like I learned to be a third-degree black belt, just like I learned to be a surgeon. I did it over and over and over, and you do it more times than you can count. Just like walking, just like riding the car. But think about the first time you drove. Oh my God, you were thinking about everything. But now you get in the car and you talk on the phone and you eat food at the same time and you wave at the next person. And somehow you get where you're going, not having an accident. And most people do that. It's constant, spaced repetition of using your intuition. You have not been taught how to do that. So here's the steps where I teach how to do that. So you can go away and then you can come back as a coach and come back and tell me what went right and what went wrong. And then we course correct. Okay, what happened? Once people start using a process of some type of process and they do it over and over again, they realize that, I'm more accurate and right than I was giving myself credit for. Yes. So just like being an elite athlete, those people who trust themselves, first of all, notice like most people who are elite athletes, you tell me whether they do it or not. So I'll tell you, I did this when I was doing time. You're practicing whatever it is in your head. And it's shown that practice in the brain is as effective as actually physically doing it. You go over it and over and over it, every little detail, every little step, feeling what it feels like in your head before you do the performance. And when something doesn't go the way you want to, you're like, let me tweak that. And you practice that over, not just physically, but also in the brain. Why? This is what changes the grooves of the brain. This is the neuroscience behind it. See, I got some science background here too. There's a neuroscience behind this. So when you're doing all these, learning how to trust yourself, first, you got to forgive yourself for not knowing what we're talking about today. You just weren't taught. This is why we exist as experts and put our life towards it. So first, forgive yourself for not knowing. Now that you know, what do you have to do? First, you have to learn the what of what you should be doing. And then you have to start practicing it. And then you have to realize that it's not going to be a straight line. You're going to make mistakes. And you're on the inside of the jar. The directions are on the outside of the jar. Me as the coach, you as the coach are going to help you read what's on the outside of the jar so that you can course correct and get it right for your life.
I love this, thinking about it, the importance of practicing not only physically, but also mentally as well, around being able to visualize things, put it into pictures and be able to see things and then be able to tweak it and change that picture as you go along. But I always love, there's something my dad always used to share with me, which was you first got to make it happen and then you need to let it happen. And you need to trust your intuition at some point, but you've got to get to a point where you have imprinted enough first before you can actually then trust that instinct, which is really beautiful. Now, we all know smart people have great answers, but the most successful people ask great questions. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Let me think. Okay, so let me just tell you, as far as I'm in the Colby system, I'm what's called a quick start. 9 or 10 on a scale from 1 to 10. When I first took it, I was a 9. Took it a second time, 10. Right? So I almost do something new every day because that's the way I'm wired. In addition to doing my coaching and consulting, I'm working on an e-commerce business and have started a brand for yoga and meditation products. So decided to indulge my creative side in a business that I know nothing about. Well, I know a little bit more now as I'm going along, but this morning I was getting up in the morning and looking at, I need to figure out this influencer marketing thing. Okay, let me, you know what I'm saying? So for me, I am wired this way, which is a positive and a negative. We're the people that have shiny object syndrome. So I do a lot of things that are uncomfortable. I know what that feeling feels like. I'll tell you the most uncomfortable thing that happens, and this is for everybody. I know when I'm really pushing, when that wave of nausea comes over me. I joined this particular type of business program, and I knew it's the right answer because that wave of nausea came over me. Because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing in this area. None. And here's the thing for people to understand. If you feel comfortable, you're not growing and you're not learning. You're not growing and you're not learning. So for me, it's easy because I'm wired that way. But that feeling of nausea still comes over me, and that feeling of fear still comes over me. I just know that in order for me really to get what I want, I got to do it anyway. And that's what happens. This is how coaches help you, because there's things I want to say no to because it's like, no, I don't want to do that. But I know it's what I should be doing. My coach said something this morning and I was like, oh, crap. Oh, he keeps challenging me. But that's what I pay him to do, right?
That's right. That's right. If you're paying someone to make you feel good, then you're not growing. If you're feeling comfortable with someone you're paying to coach you, then you're not going to grow. And so you need to feel that uncomfortableness.
Guess what? If when I get pissed about something, I know that's exactly the area that I need to work on. So that's another thing. If you're going to listen to this, if you listen to this podcast and something you got pissed about, we hit the exact area that you need to work on. That's another key.
Beautiful.
Have
Love
you
it.
found that?
We talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time. So we're speaking the same language. What is one question that you would love to solve?
Oh my God. The question everybody else would love to solve. How do I make everybody else do what I want them to do? But I know, I do know, and that's me wanting to control. How do I let go of being, I'm a recovering control freak, probably just like so many other people in the world. So the real question is, how really do I let go of control enough so that there's no emotional charge around doing it? I'm like, oh, that's okay. Right now, I'm still at the point when I'm letting go of control, knowing that I'm doing that I'm still feeling like, because it's still, we have this illusion that we can control life, and we can't. But admitting that I'm going to just let things happen and play out the way they are. So when I'm saying, how can I make everybody else do what I want to do and make me comfortable? That's what I really want to know. But it's truly, how do I let go of control enough so that I really am feeling comfortable out of control? I'm out of control anyway. How do I get comfortable not being in control?
Love it. Love it. For you, what is an inspiring great leader, and who's a great example of this for you?
I'm going to go with my first answer. Jesus. And it's funny because I have not gone to church in a long time. Um, and being in mindset coaching and being able to read spiritual texts in a different way, you realize the message under the message. And you're like, oh my God, this is just beautiful and stunning. And I just have to ignore what people try to make out of what those words mean. I have to, that's what it comes to. What is this saying to me? What is the meaning inside of me? So, um, some very profound, getting over what he looked like, where he came from, what color he is, all that other type of stuff, and really saying, there's a reason these words are being spoken to me. And those words are beautiful. And that leads us all to our abundance and our gifts. So those words are spoken so that everyone can find the abundance that awaits them. And that's a message that has been mucked up by people who are trying to control.
Beautiful. This has been a fascinating conversation. How can people learn more about what you do, and what is the best way for people to connect with you?
So first, drveronica.com is my website. I love people to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And for people out there who are leaders, who want to figure out, how do I really be an authentic leader? And we talk about, I do forums and virtual conversation with leaders of companies that have 50 or more people about once a month. And we talk about, this one, we're doing the emotional intelligence. Next month, we're doing how to have difficult conversations. We talk about hiring great talent and how do you do that from the perspective of leaders talking to other leaders so you can be better. And so if this is something that fits you, reach out to me, because we'd love to have you come in and join in these type of conversations. I'm going, from what you heard, I'm going to put a hot topic up there and challenge you to be a better you, because the only way the world gets better is if the leaders have to get better, and you have to lead from the top how everybody else is going to become more aware. And if you don't do it yourself, and that's the beauty, like I'm saying, I'm doing this Colby teaching to a group of leaders, they're going to immediately become more aware, which is going to raise up the whole vibration of everybody, their whole school. This is in an educational institution. So think about, if you're the leader and you're raising up, everybody else is going to raise up too. But you're not going to do it from reading a McKinsey report. I love McKinsey. I like all those reports too. But that's not how you're going to raise your awareness and your vibration in your company. So drveronica.com. I love to communicate on social media. One of those people, I like to communicate with you and have conversations. If you happen to live around me, reach out. We'll go out. I have meals with people. And when I come to Australia, I'm going to look you up.
Beautiful. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, Dr. Veronica. I've loved the insights around what you wanted to do when you were young, how that shifted once you started to understand yourself, the way that you're approaching the world and be able to help and serve them through, the things that you're doing with respect, the things that you are doing inside with Colby, etc., and really trying to help people to, lift to a higher vibration so that they can perform better, be more aware of things. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that sometimes we're just not aware of things that we may be subconsciously doing, not aware of things that we may be imprinting on others, and how to get to that position where we can really trust ourselves and use that instinct and intuition to be able to really affect other people in a better way than what we may not have otherwise. But that understanding too of really thinking about what is our life purpose and how can we actually make a difference versus what have we studied or what have we focused on, but we may not enjoy so much. So how can we transition and make that shift that may be really uncomfortable to make sure that we're doing stuff that we really enjoy? Because if we're not enjoying it, why are we doing it? And so thank you very much for an amazing conversation. Really enjoyed it. Dr. Veronica, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's time for you to join the Inspiring Great Leaders movement by visiting craigjohns.com.au. Share this podcast on LinkedIn and be sure to hashtag Inspiring Great Leaders. We would love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a line with your feedback and questions and connect with us on the Craig Johns LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram pages. Be sure to check out the next Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong.